What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another Monday Scale News Update. If you're not familiar with the show, we talk about the topics that happened in the scale world of RC over the past week. This week, handful of big topics. Let's jump right into them. Last week, we talked about a new release upcoming from Losi, and I had suspected that it was going to be something scale because we could see those rear light bars, and it turns out that it was. Although not necessarily what I was expecting, I did think that it was possibly going to be a Super Baja Rey bind and drive, but it turns out to be something a little bit cooler. It is the Super Rock Rey. Now, this appeals to me more than the Super Baja Rey did. While the Baja Rey was cool, I just don't really do the desert truck stuff. It's just not the type of driving that I like to do myself. But a Super Rock Rey definitely feels more appealing to me. This is one that's really going to make me think if I want to bite the bullet, jump in on this. It definitely is that larger scale. It's up to 8S capable, so, you know, some big battery packs in there pushing a really large system. I definitely have the terrain around here that I could run this thing on. I've got areas that are open enough to really open that type of thing up, and I've also got rocky areas that it would still do pretty well on, it looks like. It does look like it's running an open front differential, and it's an IFS rig in general, so it's not going to be the most capable thing in the rocks ever, but it looks like it's holding its own in the promotional video that they did. The video was on par with what we've come to expect from Horizon, a little cheesy to start with, and the video itself was just not the most exciting. I don't know why they really just aren't at that, you know, higher level of video production, but in general, you could still see how the vehicle was performing. It did look like it was pitching that nose down or kicking the rear up, depending on how you're looking at it. They really had to stay on the throttle to keep that thing flying, either nose up or even level. So it looks like it's going to kind of fly very similar to some of the other solid axle rear IFS front rigs that we're used to driving. Although I will say that it does look like it is a more controllable vehicle than the Axial Yeti XL was. That one, you know, you could really tell those front wheels were almost moving independently of each other, and, you know, they were all over the place. This thing looks like it's a little bit more solid, a little bit more put together than the Yeti XLs, but it is going to fall into that larger scale category, which is never as popular as anything that's 1/10 scale. I'm looking forward to seeing one in person, and I might just go ahead and pick one up. We'll see how impulsive I'm feeling once it gets to one of my local hobby shops. And then this week we also saw the official release information on that new Hero vehicle that we've been seeing a few times over the last handful of weeks. RC4WD Drive released this, and on the release page they don't say anywhere on there that it's a JD Models vehicle. It is the JD Models vehicle. We've seen that before. It says it on the tires, but not one place on their product page are the words JD Models shown, other than in the pictures, like on the vehicle tires sidewalls. The price is much lower than what I expected at $469, I believe, for the almost ready to run version. Now, I am also noticing though that it's different than some of the earlier pictures I saw. Some of the earlier pictures I saw kind of showed a more machined transmission transfer case setup. This one just has a planetary gearbox assembly, which is anodized blue, which is a little bit odd, and then a separate transfer case. I don't know what it is about this one, but for some reason it just looks more toyish to me. Now, for those guys who get them, I bet that they'll be able to detail these things up and they'll look much better. But the pictures that we're seeing now, it's, you know, just the one color molded body set. Of course, it's got the Hero emblems molded in the grille and on the tailgate. Not a big deal. I get that they're not trying to license it. It is what it is. It's obviously a Ford Raptor. And I think once it's detailed, that toyish look maybe will kind of dissipate and kind of start to blend in. At this point, it's definitely not something that I'm interested in. The guys who are looking for that super scale stuff, this is up their alley. For me, I don't see anywhere where I would run this, and just how it's built, I don't think that it would hold up to anything that I would want to do with it. So, but I know a number of guys that have pre-ordered them already, so once those guys get their hands on them, I'll be interested to see what their first-hand impressions are. And then another bit of news, this coming week is SEMA, and at SEMA, Red Cat is going to be displaying their new vehicle. They're calling this one the Gen 8, and it has a licensed Scout 2 body on it. It's got portal axles, and everything else they say is their own design. Now, they put a video release out on this vehicle, and it was a little bit interesting to listen to because they're talking about the path to individuality. And they're talking about how up to this point, until the Gen 7, that they were basically just obviously sourcing overseas vehicles. And if you're not familiar with the industry, a lot of times what happens is somebody overseas designs a vehicle, tools it up to have it made, and then any company can buy it and put their name on it. That's how it works, and that's how Red Cat was basically formed. They didn't do anything themselves other than put their name on it. The Gen 7 was the first one where they actually did some of it themselves. Now, in the video, they say how the chassis wasn't their own. It was actually a BPC. However, it was based around SCX-10-1 axles. And while the Gen 7 wasn't a bad vehicle, it was just an old design of a vehicle and flat rail chassis and old school SCX-10 axles. And you know, while there's a value to that, it's not up to date. It runs old stuff. It didn't, you know, it wasn't anything special. So it really wasn't a vehicle that I had any interest in myself. And then the Gen 8 now, they're talking about their path to individuality and what they've ran. It's just weird to talk about that. It's like, yeah, we blazed our path just on using other people's stuff, but we're doing our own thing now. Except, you know, the axles under this Gen 8 look basically like a Traxxas. And I know people have been testing those, and they said they had some issues with them to start, and they're working on making those better now, where they probably should have just finished copying the Traxxas axle since those hold up really well. But attached to those axles, the chassis, it's got a C-channel chassis this time, so a proper scale chassis. It's got a forward-mounted motor with a divorced transfer case. The chassis got inner fender wells and a slider system that really helps enclose everything, very similar also to like how the Traxxas Bronco is done. The battery position is mid-span and low, nice low CG. The motor is forward but pretty high again, very similar to like the G-Made Bomb that I actually just put together and did a review on yesterday. The body is a licensed Scout 2 replica, which looks pretty decent other than the blacked out windows, which just never make things look real high quality. But it does have a hard molded plastic grille with LED ready light buckets front and rear, scale bumpers, plastic beadlocks, and TSL or Super Swamper tires. Overall, we'll have to see what the price is and then inevitably what the quality is, because that is a lot of times the issue with Red Cat. But it doesn't look like we're actually going to see cars hitting the streets until either late December or early January of 2019. But that pretty much does it for the RC news from this week. There was a couple of other cool little things around the internet that popped up. The new Huna truck was one of my favorite releases. That thing was amazing. Really looking forward to them using it in Gymkhana 10. Definitely going to be one of those ones that I'm camping out waiting to see. And then something YouTube related actually. YouTube has released a new feature called a Premiere feature, which basically would allow me to shoot and edit my video like normal and then schedule it for release like I can do at this time. However, this time it allows me to share the page where that video is going to be live at this certain date and time. And then at that time, it premieres and I can be in there interacting both before and during and after the video is released. It's got a live chat, things like that. So it just allows everybody to go there, watch the video together, have an interactive chat during that time, almost like a live video. And I really like the live streams because the chat is always a super fun part about them. But I understand that most people don't have time to necessarily watch a live build. We all have things to do and you can't sit there for multiple hours at a time watching one video, and especially with live videos, there's lulls and things get a little boring. But this gives us the ability to interact with viewers in the same way, but with a much more concise video. And then after the premiere session is over, the video goes live just like it normally would, and everything is back to normal. Kind of cool, and I'm trying to figure out what would be the best application to do that with. I'm thinking that I may make that a feature for the Scale News updates, putting them live at a certain time on Monday morning and jumping in there, chatting with everyone for an hour or so while it premieres. If you're one of those people that has the notifications on and likes to go watch it right away on a Monday morning, put the comment below. Let me know if it's something that you would actually tune in for. Before we round out this video, let's jump over to the social media posts that I had and answer some of the questions that people posted up. First one says, does Vanquish have plans for upgrade parts for the VS410 like metal shock towers and etc.? There is plans for some of those things like metal shock towers. We'll see more about that in the future though. This next one says, there's a lot of new rigs released in the last year or so, but there's nothing really new. Where's the innovation gone? The G-Made bomb looks like a mix of a TRX-4 Ascender and a 10.2. I understand the sentiment behind that question, but there is a recipe for a scale truck, especially one that's going to place well in the market and be of a, popular size to allow people to have popular body options and things like that. I mean, there's more choices now than there's ever been. When I started in scale, there was no such thing as, building a real scale rock crawler. You had to take axles from a monster truck that Tamiya made from a small scale thing and build those under a chassis that you hacked out of a cutting board to try and make something be realistic. Now there's tons of options. There's tons of cool upgrade parts. You can build a scale truck without having to fabricate anything yourself. The innovation or the individuality especially is on the builder. You need to take and imagine something that you want to build and then build it. Make something yourself, dive in, just create something on your own. You can make these scale truck platforms that are getting really, really good. You can make them into anything. You can make them almost completely unrecognizable from what they start. So when there isn't something that you like or you think that the innovation's gone, innovate something on your own. We had to do it for years. It's not impossible even with the most basic tools in a one-bedroom apartment in a busy city. You can do it, you just have to jump in. This question says, when's the last time you did a build without doing a video build? I think sometimes you need to turn off the camera to truly enjoy the build. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. Sometimes I enjoy the video filming part more than anything else. But the last time I did it, I think, was when I built that Cross GC4. Next question says, what RC crawler do you think you'll get next? Either a review or for your personal collection. I don't know what the next one I'll probably pick up is. I'm sure that I'll pick up one of those Red Cats to take a look at, to dive into, kind of show what's going on. I don't know if you want to call that Losi Super Rock Rey a crawler or not. I don't know that there's any others in the market that I don't already own or that I feel like owning. So we'll just have to see how it goes. This question says, I think we all would agree that success of the Axial brand was largely due to the aftermarket support and vice versa, not discrediting their earlier rival in the market. What do you think it will take for a manufacturer to push the aftermarket to pay attention to them? Or do you think that it's even possible at this point? Follow-up question, if not plausible, do you think that smaller boutique style kits, like the Vanquish VS410, will become more common? I liked this question a lot. It was a good post. When Axial came out, it was the option. And other ones that came out even after seeing what Axial did, they didn't necessarily do a great job in a lot of ways. But Axial had a huge aftermarket following because they were the only one for a really long time. And then as new kits come on, there was such a huge popularity around them that it made sense for the aftermarket to follow them or to keep following them. But now as the market diversifies so far and with so many other options, at this point it's almost like a manufacturer has to decide where to go, and it's almost hard to try and make that decision. And if one of those platforms is a flop, then what's the point in chasing it? The TRX-4 is a very popular vehicle and the aftermarket's there for it, but it's not great. There's not a lot of good looking aftermarket for it. There's a lot of really terrible brass parts that everyone keeps putting on them, but it's just what's available. It's a really different market from a time when a lot of us started way back when there was, maybe only the SCX-10, or for some of us, way before there was ever anything called an SCX-10. This question says, what are your thoughts about the Capo JK Max? Would you get one? I would definitely not get one. I would definitely not consider ever picking up another Capo. I had the first JK that released and the parts fitment was so bad, things just wouldn't even go together. Trying to get parts to fix them from Capo was a nightmare. They ended up sending like 2 or 3 revisions to trying to fix problems that they had on it. And in general, just so many things about the engineering behind it, like not being able to see the gears to adjust the gear mesh. Just short-sighted design of short-sighted design. It's just not a company I had any interest into ever working with one of their vehicles again. Next question says, is it possible that an underdog company like Red Cat can actually turn up the heat on the more popular brands as far as their new Gen 8 is concerned? It is possible, especially if it's well done. But we know Red Cat, and we know that necessarily doesn't always go hand in hand. There is things about it that look like it could be well done, but construction and actual design as you get into it is still up for debate. We'll have to see what it is. The Gen 7 I don't think was any real example of a real quality vehicle. It was not a bad value, but it wasn't innovative or anything like that. It was just a decent value, not necessarily a good car. So I don't think up to this point we've really seen any example of them putting out something that would turn up the heat. With all that covered, we're gonna wrap this one up, guys. Thanks for watching the Scale News Update. I always appreciate all of your guys' comments and views, shares, the whole deal. It's really appreciated. I hope you all have an awesome week. Hit the like button if you enjoyed the video, subscribe if you're not already, and we'll see you on the next one.